Uh, yeah, hi, I hope I'm audible. Yes, yeah, can someone confirm whether I'm audible or not? Yeah, I presume I'm audible and I'm going ahead because it seems no. Yeah, so let's just start today's session. Just give me a second. Yeah, so yes, let's just go ahead and start with the, you know, last week's assignment. So yeah, which of these week six assignments? Which of these are broad groups of peninsular plateau of India? So yeah, the Deccan Plateau, the Central Highlands, the Northeastern Plateau, all of these. So the peninsular India has all of these. It has Deccan Plateau, the Central Highlands, and Northeastern Plateau. So it's all of these. And okay, then let me just go back. Am I audible now? No, not yet. Am I audible now? Still no. Okay, just give me a second. Yes. Uh, Now is it okay? No. Okay. Then I think something wrong with my headset. Uh, yeah. I hope. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Am I audible now? Good or not? Still now? No. 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 Yes. At least my system shows that it's taking some audio. Not it. Okay. Uh. Yeah. Is it better? Still audible? Nope. Okay. Uh. Then let me just give me a sec. Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
is it audible?
is it audible?
Right?
Right?
I think it's audible
I
now.
think it's audible now.
No,
No,
I can hear.
I can hear.
I can hear.
I can hear.
Guys, other
Guys,
people
other
can
people
someone
can
confirm
someone confirm
because
because
I'm using
I'm
my
using
mobile
my
also
mobile also
and I'm getting
and I'm
audio from
getting
there.
audio from there.
Maybe
Maybe
Sriharini,
Sriharini,
maybe Try
Try
rejoining if it's not
rejoining.
audible
If
to
it's
you.
not
Might
audible
be
to
an
you,
issue
might be an issue
from your end.
from your end.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Uh,
just give me a sec
just
then.
give me a sec then.
I'm
Um,
really sorry for
really sorry
this
for this
issue here.
issue here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think should
I
be
think
audible
should
now.
be audible
Better.
now. Better.
Yeah, I think it should be
Yeah,
better
I think
now.
it should be better now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for
Thanks, you
confirming.
guys, for
I'm really
confirming.
sorry for
I'm really sorry for
this issue.
this issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's
So
go back.
let us go back.
So yeah.
So yeah.
So that's the first
So that's
question.
the first question.
And then the other
And then
questions
the other
are
questions are
almost most of these
almost most
questions
of
were
these
on
questions were on
this
this
Geiger
Geiger
scheme of
scheme of
classification. So I thought
classification.
before
So I
we
thought
enter
before we
that,
enter
we'll
that,
just
we'll
slightly go
just
inside
slightly go inside
uh,
uh,
what all those things
what all
mean.
those things
So
mean.
just roughly,
So
not
just roughly,
much
not
around.
much
So we'll
around.
just
So
see
we'll
roughly
just see roughly
each of
what
these
each
things.
of these things.
So if you just
So
see
if you
in
just
Köppen's
see in
classification,
Köppen's
what is
classification,
cold,
what is
arid
cool,
climate,
arid climate,
temperature, or
temperature,
so
or
there are these
so there
things.
are these things.
So the idea
So the
behind
idea
this
behind
Köppen
this
classification
Köppen
is
classification is
Köppen Geiger is a
Köppen Geiger
botanist.
is a
He wanted
botanist
to
who
classify
wanted to classify
based on
based on
temperature
temperature
and precipitation.
and precipitation.
So
So
he came up
he came up
with this
with this
thematic.
thematic.
So it generally
So
has
it
three
generally has
letters.
three letters.
First letter
First letter
being an
being
alphabet.
an
All of
alphabet.
them are
All of
alphabets.
them are
The first
alphabets.
one
The
being
first one
in
being
a
in
letter that is
a
in
letter that is in
caps. All others
caps.
are smaller
All others are
letters.
smaller letters.
So yeah,
So yeah,
feel free to go
feel free to
around the
go
criteria,
around the
and
criteria,
then
and then
each letter
each letter
uh,
uh,
corresponds to
corresponds to
each type of
each type of
zone, like
zone,
tropical,
like
temperate,
tropical, temperate,
continental, and there
continental,
is a polar
and there is a
climate.
polar climate.
So it's
So
most of
it's
that's the
most of
first letter
that's the first
generally
letter
corresponds to.
generally corresponds to.
So
So
in that
in that
classification,
classification,
which is cold arid
which is cold
temperature.
arid temperature.
So the letter
So the
K,
letter
small
K,
k,
small
refers to
k,
cold
refers
arid
to cold
temperature,
arid temperature,
right?
right?
Uh,
Uh,
and which
and
is steppy
which is
precipitation.
steppy precipitation.
For steppies,
For
the
steppies,
precipitation
the
is
precipitation is
it is smaller
it is
s.
smaller s.
And similarly for
And
warm
similarly,
summer
for warm
temperature,
summer temperature,
it's B,
it's B.
which is hot summer
Which is hot
temperature.
summer
It's A.
temperature, it's A.
Cool summer
Cool
C,
summer C,
which is dry summer,
which is
summer
dry
dry
summer
precipitation
dry
is S.
precipitation, it's S.
So with
So
respect to
with respect to
precipitation,
precipitation,
it's smaller
it's
letters.
smaller letters.
Monsoonal precipitation
Monsoonal
is
precipitation
M.
is
Polar
M.
tundra
Polar
temperature
tundra
T.
temperature T.
So
So
again
again,
caps, which is polar
caps, which is
climate. So we
polar
use
climate. So we
the
use
letter E.
the letter
If you
E.
remember from the
If you
scheme,
remember
the
from the
three
scheme,
letters. The
the three
first letter
letters, the first
caps
letter
E
caps E
is first
is
polar climate.
first polar climate.
So this is how it
So
looks
this
like.
is how it looks
So
like.
if you look at the
So if
scheme,
you look at the scheme,
uh,
uh,
yeah, I didn't
yeah,
spend much
I
time
didn't spend much
on
time
those
on
questions
those
because
questions because
you had to
you
remember
had to
by them.
remember by them.
So if you look
So
at
if
you
look
have
at
at least
you
two
have at
letter,
least two letter
max to max three letter
max
names.
three letter
So
names.
A
So A
is for specific
is for
type of
specific
climate.
type of climate.
OA
OA
generally refers to
generally
tropical
refers to
climate.
tropical climate.
B is
B
referred to
is referred to
precipitation and so on.
precipitation and so on.
Right? E is for
Right? E is
polar
for polar climate.
and D for
And D for
continental. So which
continental.
is this
So which
area.
is this area.
So there's a much more
So there's a
easier
much
figure
more
also
easier figure also
that you
that
can
you can
look around.
look around.
So just
So
briefly that
just briefly that
Köppen's
Puppet's
classification of climates,
classification of
and
climates,
they can be
and
further
they can be
classified
further classified
based on temperature and
based on
precipitation.
temperature
So
and
which is
precipitation. So this
SA, SB,
SA, SB,
WA, WB. So all these are
WAWB. So
further
all these are further
classifications.
classifications.
So yeah.
So yeah.
So
So
as
as
this week we are
this week we are
mostly discussing
mostly
about
discussing about
soil biodiversity
soil
and all.
biodiversity and all.
Uh,
Uh,
we have been
we have
discussing
been
about
discussing
soil
about soil
from
from
lithosphere and all.
lithosphere and all.
So
So
we'll just go
we'll
briefly
just
over
go
it, but
briefly
not
over it, but not
much data in
much
depth.
data in depth.
So we all know that
So we all know
soil
that
has
soil has
is it's not a single
it's
entity.
not a
It's
single
made up of
entity.
multiple
It's made up of
entities. It
multiple
has
entities. It
minerals,
has minerals.
it has
It has
organic matter,
organic
it
matter.
has living
It has
organisms,
living
gas and
organisms,
water.
gas, and water.
So let's just go over
So let's just
one
go
by
over
one.
try one by
So
one.
water,
So water
it's so
is
most of the
so
soils
most of
have
the soils
water in
have
them,
water in them
and gases also.
and gases also.
So living
So
organisms,
living
we have
organisms we have
microbial
microbial
organisms like
organisms
bacteria,
like
fungi,
bacteria, fungi,
viruses,
viruses,
and even we have
and even we have
algae,
algae,
and
and
even we have
even we have
some
some
single cell to
single cell to
multicellular
multicellular
animals also
animals also
living inside
living inside
the soil.
the
So
soil. So
nematodes, so
nematodes,
microscopic
the
nematodes are
microscopic
there. There are
nematodes are there. There are
earthworms. There are
earthworms. There
a
are
lot of
a lot of
insects that just
insects that just
spend most of their
spend
life
most of their life
cycles
cycles
inside
inside
soils.
soils.
And
And
these
lot of these
organisms contribute
organisms
to
contribute
the
to
soil
the
organic
soil organic,
the
the
the organic stuff that
the
is in the
organic stuff
soil.
that is in the soil.
And there is
And
the other
there is
component
the
of the
other
soil,
component
major
of the soil,
component of soil
major
is
component of soil
minerals.
is minerals.
So in
So
general,
in general,
soil
soil
minerals can be
minerals
divided
can
into
be
three
divided
size
into three
classes,
size
right,
classes,
based on the
right? Based
composition.
on the composition.
One is clay,
One is
the
clay,
other is
the
silt,
other is
and the
silt,
third being
and the third being
sand,
sand.
right?
Right?
Screen not visible.
Screen not visible.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, just a
Okay,
sec then.
just a sec then.
Well, let me
Well,
just.
let me
Oh,
just.
sorry.
Oh,
I
sorry.
forgot to
I forgot
share
to
the screen.
share the screen.
Extremely sorry.
Extremely sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just.
let's just
One second.
let's just go over them again.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for
thank
pointing
you
it
for
out.
pointing it out.
So the thing
So
is,
the thing
since
is,
I'm not
since I'm not
being able to use
being
my
able to use
mobile,
my mobile,
so just
so just
please unmute
please
yourself
unmute
and then
yourself and
speak out
then speak
because
out because
I had to check
I had to check
again. If
again.
I fail to
If I
check,
fail to check,
please let me know.
please let me know.
Right?
Right?
So
So
yeah, this is a
yeah, this is a
Copenhagen
Copenhagen
classification that I was
classification that I was
saying.
saying.
You have
You
three
have three
letters. The first
letters. The
letter
first letter
talks about the
talks about
region
the region
that
that
you are referring
we are
to.
referring
The
to.
second two
The second two
letters talk
letters
about
talk about
temperature and
temperature and
precipitation.
precipitation.
The second
The
letter
second letter
mostly about
mostly about
precipitation, and
precipitation,
the third
and the third
letter
letter
about
about
temperature.
temperature.
Right?
Right?
Like
Like
if you have
if you have
CSA, so you're
CSA,
talking
so you're
about
talking about
a
a
region
region
from that
from
region
that region
with
with
so and so
so and so
precipitation and so and so
precipitation, so and so
temperature.
temperature.
So
So
yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
so
so
I'm
I'm not
not going back
going back
with these
with these
questions again
questions
because
again because
they are
they are
mostly
mostly
uh,
uh,
you had to
we
remember
had to
them
remember them
based on the
based on the
classification.
classification.
So there's
So
nothing
there's
much to
nothing much
discuss,
to discuss,
but we'll
but
spend
we'll spend
little time
little time
on this slide
on this
here
slide here
that I was
that
referring
I was
to
referring to
earlier.
earlier
Uh,
uh,
that talks
that
about
talks about
different
different
regions of
regions of
according to this
according to this
classification, right?
classification, right?
A here
A here
mostly refers to
mostly refers to
tropical
tropical
climate.
climate.
So this is
So
where
this is
the
where the
tropics
tropics
is, right?
is, right?
India we have
India we have
AW
AW
kind of
kind
climate,
of climate,
right?
right?
Which is
Which
drier
is drier
climate,
climate,
but in the
but in the
tropics.
tropics.
So
So
and then here
and then here
Antarctic and
Antarctic and
Arctic
Arctic
circles are
circles are
mostly
mostly
ET and
ET
EF.
and
So
EF. So
basically
basically
polar
polar
climates. E
climates.
is the
So
letter E
the letter
corresponds
E
to polar.
corresponds to polar.
Similarly, D
Similarly, D
corresponds to
corresponds to
continental.
continental.
B
B
corresponds to
corresponds to
temperate,
temperate,
and so on.
and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
that's the
that's the thing.
so
So
that's what I was
that's
saying.
what I was
Soil.
saying. Soil.
It has multiple
It has multiple
components:
components:
minerals,
minerals,
organic matter,
organic matter,
living
living
organisms,
organisms,
gas, and water.
gas, and water.
And if you look at
And if you look
soil
at soil,
mineral
mineral
components,
components,
the soil
so soil
minerals
minerals
can
can
be
be
classified
classified
into
into
three
three
size
different size
classes:
classes:
the clay,
the clay,
silt, and
silt,
sand.
and sand.
So if you look
So
at
if
this
you look at this
infographic on the right
infographic on the
side,
right side,
uh,
uh,
so this is
so
the
this is the
rough
rough
size we can
size we
see.
can see.
The
The
sand,
sand,
the size,
the
particle size
particle
varies
size
from
varies from 2 to
0.05 mm,
0.05 mm,
and
and
silt
silt
is much more
is much
smaller,
more smaller,
0.05 to
0.05 to
0.002 mm,
0.002 mm,
and clay
and clay
is much more
is
smaller
much more
than
smaller than
silt. We call
silt we
clay,
call clay,
right?
right?
So yeah,
So yeah,
so there are three
so there
different
are three
sizes,
different
and then
sizes, and then
based on the
based on the
composition of
composition of
these three
these three
components,
components,
we
we
classify the soil
classify the
into
soil
different
into different
names,
names,
right?
right?
So
So
percent clay,
percent clay,
if we have
if we have
more than
more than
50% clay,
50% clay,
50%
50%
sand,
sand,
40% silt,
40% silt,
we call that
we
type of
call that type
soil
of
as
soil
clay soil.
as clay soil.
If we have
If we have
large amount of
large
sand,
amount of
it's
sand,
sand.
it's sand,
And then
and then
if it's
if it's
50%
50%
sand
sand,
less
less
20% clay,
20% clay, 20
80% silt,
80% silt,
that's tend to
that's
be loamy,
tend to be loamy,
right? And
right?
then
And
we
then
call
we
it
call
clay
it
loam
clay
based on
loam
the
based on the
percentage
percentage
changes.
changes.
Silt clay loam,
Silt clay
silty
loam,
clay.
silty clay.
So
So
that's
that's
the
the
different
different
classifications we
classifications
generally
we
use,
generally use,
right? But
right?
on
But
each
on
corners
each
it's
corners,
silt,
it's silt,
sand, and
sand,
clay.
and clay.
And
And
yeah, so
yeah,
that's all
so that's
I
all
thought of
I thought of
discussing about
discussing about
uh,
uh,
soil and
soil and
components, not
components,
much.
not much.
So
So
there are different
there are different
types of
types
soil
of
across
soil
India
across
also.
India also.
I think it
I
has
think
been
it has
built
been built
slightly,
slightly,
so
so
I will not
I will
touch
not
much
touch
about
much
that.
about that.
And yeah,
And
going
yeah,
slightly
going
ahead,
slightly ahead,
let's just talk
let's
about
just talk about
biogeochemical cycles,
biogeochemicals,
right?
right?
Simply put together,
Simply
there.
put together, there.
So all the
So
cycles
all
that
the
we know,
cycles that we
carbon,
know,
nitrogen,
carbon, nitrogen,
these are
these are
generally referred
generally
to as
referred to as
biogeochemical cycles.
biogeochemical cycles.
So
So
biogeochemical
biogeochemical
has,
has
so it
so
has
it has
biological
biological
components, so
components.
the
So
name
the
itself
name itself
says it.
says it. So
Biological
biological
component,
components,
geological and chemical
geological and chemical
components.
components.
So the
So the
cycles
cycles
happen through all
happen
of
through
these
all
three
of these
different
three different
components.
components.
So
So
definition is
definition
simple.
is
So it's
simple.
like the
So it's
movement
like
and
the movement and
transformation of elements
transformation
and
of elements and
compounds
compounds
between living
between living
organisms,
organisms,
the
the
atmosphere,
atmosphere,
and the Earth's
and the
crust.
Earth's crust.
So it just
So it's
flows
just the flow
across.
across.
So
So
let's just look at
let's just
the
look at
nitrogen
the
cycle
nitrogen
first.
cycle first.
Right,
Right?
these are the
These are
cycles that
the
we have
cycle
been
that we have
going,
been going,
we have been
we have
coming
been
across a
coming
lot,
across a lot,
but we'll
but
just go
we'll
through
just go
again.
again.
So if you
So
remember,
if you remember,
the
the
atmosphere
atmosphere
has the highest
has the
amount of
highest amount
nitrogen,
of
right?
nitrogen, right?
71%,
71%,
roughly around that
roughly around
percent
that
is the
percent is
nitrogen
the
in the air.
nitrogen in the air.
So that kind
So
of
that
acts as
kind
a
of acts as a
source,
source,
major
major
source of
source of
nitrogen
nitrogen
in this cycle.
in this cycle.
And then,
And then,
so that
so that
nitrogen is
nitrogen is
generally
generally
fixed,
fixed,
mostly
mostly
either
either
naturally
naturally
through
through
nitrogen fixing
nitrogen
bacteria
fixing
in
bacteria
soil,
in
free
soil,
living
free
nitrogen
living
fixing
nitrogen fixing
bacteria,
bacteria,
or
or
in
in
legumes,
legumes,
we have these
we have
nitrogen
these nitrogen
fixing
fixing
bacteria in the root
bacteria in the root
nodules.
nodules.
Or
Or
sometimes
sometimes
due to
due
lightning
to
and all,
lightning and all,
due to the
due to
temperature
the
that it is
temperature that it is
created,
created,
so that
so
also
that also
converts
converts
nitrogen
nitrogen
into this
into
usable
this
form
usable form
of
of
ammonia,
ammonia,
right?
right?
Ammonium or
Ammonium or
ammonia.
ammonia.
So this
So
is
this
what
is what
is
is
used
used
by
by
most of
most of by
the
most of the
organisms, or at
organisms,
least
or at least
the
the
plants.
plants.
Plants take up
Plants take up
this
this
ammonium ion
ammonium
or this
ion or this
ammonia,
ammonia,
and then
and then
this they
this
use
they
that,
use that,
or they
or
can take
they
up
can take
through
up
in the form
to
of
in the form of
nitrates also.
nitrates also,
And then
and
it just
then it
goes
just goes
across the
across
animals
the
and then
animals
just
and then
goes
just
back again.
goes back again.
So there are
So
different
there are different
names that we
names
call.
that we call. So
The
the
conversion of
conversion of
ammonium into
ammonium into
nitrates, it's called
nitrates, it's called
nitrification, because
nitrification
you're
because
making
you're making
nitrates.
nitrates,
And conversion
and
of
conversion of
nitrates into
nitrates into
nitrogen is called
nitrogen is called
denitrification.
denitrification.
There are a lot of
There are a lot of
microbes that
microbes
actually
that
does
actually
these
does these
jobs.
jobs,
And then,
and then
but the thing is,
but
the
the thing is, the
industrialization
industrialization
has led to,
has led to
greater amount of
greater amount of
nitrogen
nitrogen
being
being
converted into
converted
ammonia,
into ammonia,
right?
right?
Urea that we
Urea
use,
that we use
it's
is
mostly
mostly
urea that we use
urea that we
for,
use for
uh, in the fields,
in the
agriculture
fields,
fields.
agriculture fields.
So it's
So it's
mostly
mostly from
industrial level
industrial level
nitrogen
nitrogen
fixation.
fixation.
So there is
So there
this
is this
neutron
economic
Bosch-Haber
Bosch Haber
process
process
through which
through which
uh,
uh,
it is
it is
actually the
actually the
nitrogen is
nitrogen
converted
is
into
converted
ammonia,
into ammonia
or
or
technically urea,
technically urea,
and that is what
and
we
that is what
use,
we use,
right?
right?
So
So
that's where the
that's
human
where the
effects on
human
the
effects
nitrogen
on the
cycle
nitrogen
actually
cycle
come in,
actually come in,
because
because
from
from
apart from what
apart
is
from what
happening
is happening
naturally, we are
naturally,
putting
we
up
are putting up
lot of
lot of
nitrogen into
nitrogen
the
into
soils,
the
right?
soils,
Because we are
right? Because
using
we are using
higher amounts
higher
of
amounts of
uh,
uh,
nitrogen than
nitrogen
what
than what
these soils
these
have been
soils
used
have
to.
been used to.
So that
So
kind
that
of
kind
leaves
of leaves
this whole
this
cycle
whole cycle
imbalance, right?
imbalance,
Because
right?
of lot of
Because
these
of lot of these
fertilizers
fertilizers
that we are
that we
using,
are
it
using,
kinds of
kinds of
changes out the
changes out the
balance.
balance.
And also we
And
are
also we
also
are also
using fossil
using
fuels.
fossil
This
fuels.
also
This
leads to a
also
lot of
lead to a lot of
nitrogen and
nitrogen
nitrogen
and nitrogen related
being
compounds
emitted
being
into the air.
emitted into the air.
So the
So the
balance is
balance
what
is what
is changing
is
in this
changing in this
Anthropocene,
Anthropocene,
and that has its
and that has its
consequential
consequential
effects on a lot of
effects
other
on a lot of
things.
other things.
Similarly,
Similarly,
the carbon
the
cycle.
carbon cycle.
Contrary to
Contrary to
nitrogen,
nitrogen,
thus
thus
where
where
large chunk of
large chunk of
the source of
the source of
nitrogen
nitrogen
is the air,
is the air,
the carbon
the
for
carbon
carbon
for
is the
carbon is the
soils.
soil.
So large
So
chunk of
large chunk of
carbon
carbon
is in the
is
earth's
in the
crust
Earth's crust mostly,
and in the
and
oceans
in the
also.
oceans also.
So
So
let's just start
let's just
the
start
cycle
the
with
cycle with
plants, because
plants, because
those are
those are
the organisms
the
that
organisms that
actually
actually
take a lot
take
of
a lot
that
of
carbon
that
up.
carbon up.
So
So
photosynthesis,
photosynthesis,
from the
from the
atmospheric carbon
atmospheric carbon
dioxide,
dioxide,
plants take
plants
that,
take that,
and then they're
and then they're
subsequently consumed
subsequently
by
consumed by
animals.
animals.
And then
And then
when these
when these
animals die,
animals die,
they kind
they
of
kind of converts into
organic matter
organic matter
in the soil.
in the soil.
Once they're
Once they're
decomposed,
decomposed,
during
during
decomposition,
decomposition,
lot of
a
carbon
lot of
dioxide
carbon
is
dioxide
released.
is released back.
And during
And during
respiration, when those
respiration, when
animals
those
are
animals
alive,
are alive,
the carbon
the
dioxide
carbon
goes back
dioxide
into
goes
the
back into the
soil.
soil.
And there is
And there is
assimilation into the
assimilation
soil that
into the soil
happens,
that
because
happens
there are a
because
lot of
there are a lot of
bacteria and
bacteria
fungi
and fungi
present in the soil that
present in the soil that
actually
actually,
use carbon
use
also.
carbon also.
So they kind
So
of,
they kind of,
when they die, they
when they die,
leave
they
the
leave
carbon
the
back into the
carbon
soil.
back into the soil.
So that's where it
So
happens.
that's where it happens.
Similarly,
Similarly,
phytoplankton
phytoplankton
in the
in the
oceans,
oceans,
they
they
also
also
uh,
uh,
use carbon
use
dioxide, the
the
atmospheric carbon
atmospheric carbon
dioxide.
dioxide,
And then once
and
they
then
die,
once they die,
or once
or
they're
once they're
consumed
consumed
across the food
across the
chain,
food chain,
some of
some of
that carbon
that carbon
actually gets
actually gets
deposited in the form
deposited
of
in the form of
calcium
calcium
carbonates
carbonates
in the ocean.
in the ocean.
While
While
there's a lot of,
there's a lot of,
we all know that
we all
how
know that
fossil
how
fuels
fossil fuels
are formed.
are formed,
It is
right? It is
basically
basically uh,
plants and
plants and
animals
animals
that were
that were
compressed over
compressed over
millennia
millennia
under the Earth's
under the Earth's
surface,
surface,
right?
right?
So when we
So
burn
when we
them, we are
burn them,
actually
we are
contributing
actually
to release of
contributing to
carbon
release of
dioxide.
carbon dioxide.
During volcanic
During volcanic
eruptions, a lot of
eruptions,
those
a lot of those
eruptions
eruptions
actually pump out a
actually
lot of
pump out a
carbon
lot of
dioxide
carbon dioxide
from the
from
Earth.
the Earth.
Similarly,
Similarly,
yeah,
yeah,
and then
and then
a lot of
a lot of
soils tend to
soils
have
tend
different
to have
amounts of
different amounts
carbon.
of carbon also.
So disturbance
So
to
disturbance to
soils leads
soils
to
leads to
emissions,
emissions
or
or
absorption of carbon.
absorption of carbon.
So
So
that's broadly
that's
the
broadly
carbon
the
cycle,
carbon cycle,
and this is
and
where
this
we are
is where we are
missing
missing
mostly
mostly
this cycle,
this cycle,
because we are
because we are
releasing
releasing
lot of
a
carbon
lot of carbon
dioxide
dioxide
from the
from
earth
the earth
that has
that
been there
hasn't
in the
been there in the
atmosphere
atmosphere
for a lot of
for a
time.
lot of time.
uh,
Uh,
so that's
so
kind of
that's kind of
actually increasing
actually
the carbon
increasing the
dioxide
carbon
level in the
dioxide level in the
atmosphere, and then
atmosphere, and then
further having
further
a
having a
positive
positive
feedback
feedback
uh,
uh,
due to global
due to
warming,
global
because
warming,
carbon
because
dioxide,
carbon
being a
dioxide being a
greenhouse gas,
greenhouse
it
gas,
warms
it
the
warms the
temperature,
temperature,
and
and
it has a lot
it
of
has a lot of
other
other
effects
effects
which
which
we already
we
know,
already know,
right? But
right?
still,
But still,
we are not
we are not
at any
at
stage
any
of
stage of
cutting down on
cutting
these
down these
emissions.
emissions.
And
And
similarly,
similarly,
the sulfur
the
cycle.
sulfur cycle.
So most of the
So most of
sulfur
the sulfur
Eats
eats
deposit in the
deposit in the
soil,
soil,
either
either
when we
when we
use
use
ores or
ores
fossil
or fossil
fuels,
when we burn these
fossil fuels,
fossil
or we
fuels, or
use
we use
when we process
when
some
we
of
process
those
some of
ores.
those ores.
During those
During those
processes, a lot of
processes, a
sulfur
lot of
dioxide
sulfur dioxide
is released.
is released,
And then
and then
even
even
some of the
some of the
bacteria,
bacteria
uh,
uh,
they also
they also
release
release
sulfur,
sulfur,
right?
right?
And then that
And
goes
then
back
that
into the
goes back into the
atmosphere,
atmosphere,
that comes down
that comes down
sometimes as
sometimes as
acid rain.
acid rain.
And
And
plants also
plants
take
also
some of
take
the
some of
sulfates
the
in the soil,
sulfates in the soil,
and then they're
and then
passed
they're
across
passed
animal
across
organisms. When they
organisms.
die,
When they die,
it actually
it
goes
actually
back
goes back
again into the soil,
again into the soil,
right?
right?
uh,
Uh,
that's all with
that's all
those
with those
biogeochemical cycles.
biogeochemical
And
cycles.
then the
And
other
then
cycle
the
is
other
water
cycle is
cycle,
water
which we
cycle,
have
which we
already
have already
discussed earlier.
discussed earlier.
So yeah,
So yeah,
if anybody has
if anybody
anything,
has
they
anything,
can
I can
take
take
any
any
questions, or
questions,
else
or
we'll
else
slightly
we'll
go ahead.
slightly go ahead.
Okay,
Okay,
right.
right.
uh,
Uh,
so
so
just let's just
just
go
let's just
ahead
go ahead
and
and
start
start
little bit
little
trying
bit
to
trying to
understand
understand
diversity,
diversity,
right?
right?
So
So
so what do you
so
guys
what do you
think?
guys think?
Is a
Is a
species,
species,
what is a
what is a
species? So
species?
before we
So before
go
we go
into what is a
into what is a
community,
community,
I think it's
I think
better
it's
if you
better if you
understand what
understand
is
what
a
is a
species,
species.
so according to
So
you,
according to you,
or
or
what
what
is
is
your
your
understanding of
understanding of
species,
species?
the term
The
species?
term species.
Right, anybody?
Right? Anybody?
Okay,
Okay.
so
So
I hope I'm
I
still
hope I'm
audible,
still audible
because nobody's
because nobody is
answering. So I
answering.
think
So I
I'm
think
still
I'm
audible, and
still
then, but
audible, and then but
yeah, you're
yeah, you're
not in a
not
position
in
to
a
answer
position to
the
answer
question.
the question.
So let me just
So
go
let me
ahead.
just go ahead.
A species.
Species.
So
So
there are a lot of
there are a lot of
definitions
definitions
of a
of a
species. There are a lot
species.
of
There are a lot of
concepts like
concepts like
biological species
biological species
concept. There
concept.
is
There is
phylogenetic species
phylogenetic species
concept. There is a
concept. There is a
morphological species
morphological
concept.
species concept.
So someone
So
said
someone
species
said
are
species are
organisms that
organisms
can
that
breed
can
together
breed together
and
and
produce
produce
offsprings.
offsprings.
You're
You're
close.
close.
So
So
the definition that
the
you're
definition that
saying
you're
is of
saying is of
biological species
biological species
concepts,
concepts,
right?
right?
Here,
Here,
in biological
in
species
biological species
concepts, is what
concept,
you're
is
saying
what you're
that
saying that
species
species
are
are
organisms
organisms
that can
that can
interbreed
interbreed
together and
together
produce
and produce
fertile
fertile
offsprings, not
offspring,
just
not
offspring.
just
The
offspring.
offspring
The
should also
offspring
be
should
able to
also be
produce
able to produce
offsprings,
offspring,
right?
right?
Uh,
Uh,
because
because
if you
if
take the
you
example
take the
of
example of
mule,
if mule,
right? It's
right?
a
It's a
cross
cross
between a
between
horse
a
and a
horse
donkey,
and a donkey.
so that gives a
So that
mule.
gives a mule.
But
But
mules are
mules are
infertile, so
infertile.
they can't
So they can't
produce
produce
offspring of their
offspring
own.
of their own.
So
So
that's why mules
that's why
can't,
mules
the
can't, the
donkey and
donkey
the
and
horse
the horse
together
together
are not a
are
single
not a
species.
single species.
But if
But
mules
if
could
mules could
reproduce and produce a fertile
produce a
offspring,
fertile
then
offspring,
yeah,
then yeah,
there is no
there is
difference
no
between
difference between there's
horse and donkey. They
horse
are
and donkey. They
of the
are
same
of the
species.
same species.
But that's not
But
what we
that's
see.
not what we see.
So that's
So
a
that's a
basic
basic
of
of
biological species
biological
concept.
species
So
concept. So
parents,
parents,
when they breed,
when they breed,
they should be able to
they should be
produce
able to
fertile
produce
offspring.
fertile offspring.
So the
So
offspring
the
should also
offspring
be
should
able
also
to
be able to
produce offspring.
produce offspring.
So
So
donkeys,
donkeys,
horses.
horses, horses.
So they can
So they
breed,
can
and the
breed,
young
and
ones
the
can
young
be
ones can be
produce young ones.
produce young ones.
So they are
So they are
distinct
distinct
species.
species.
Donkeys are a different
Donkeys are
species,
different
but
species, but
mules
mules
can't
can't
reproduce.
reproduce.
That's why
That's why
they are two different
they are two
species.
different species.
So
So
that's
that's
biological species
biological
concept.
species.
And
And
and there is the other
there is the
concept,
other
the
concept,
phylogenetic species.
phylogenetic species.
So here
So
you look at
here you look at
phylogenetical
phylogenical
differences when you
differences when you
make a
make a
phylogenetic tree.
phylogenetic tree.
So
So
if you're
if
not
you're
able to
not able to
understand this,
understand this,
maybe
maybe
don't worry
don't
much
worry much
about that.
about that.
So generally
So generally,
phylogenetic species
phylogenetic
concept,
species concept,
you try to
you
say,
try to say,
in terms of
in terms of
when you build
when you build
phylogenies or
phylogenies or ancestor
relationship
relationship
across different
across
group of
different group of
species.
species.
Species
Species are
are individual
different
clusters.
individual
So
clusters. So
that's what
that's
this is
what
what you look
you
like.
look like.
So let me just
So
try
let me
to
just
draw
try
it.
to draw it.
So you might have
So you
seen
might have seen
phylogenetic trees,
phylogenetic
right?
trees, right?
So
So
if a group of
if a group of
organisms are
organisms
forming a
are
distinct
forming a
cluster
distinct
in terms
cluster
of
in terms of
their
their
phylogeny,
phylogeny,
either from
either from
the genes,
the genes,
so you call
so you
those
call
set of
those set of
organisms as a
organisms
single
as a single
species,
species,
and the other
and the other
set of
set
organisms
of
as a
organisms
different
as a
species. So
different species.
you
So
try to
you try
understand
to understand
their
their
relations, and then
relations,
try to
and
say
then
these
try
are
to say
different
these are
species.
different species.
And then there
And then
is
there is
morphological species
morphological
concept,
species concept,
right?
right?
uh,
Uh,
in
in
morphological species
morphological
concept,
species concept,
you
you
look at
look at
morphology
morphology
and say
and say species are
those
those
group of
organisms
that has
that
similar
has similar
morphologies. Here
morphologies.
you don't
Here you
talk
don't
about
talk about
their
their
reproduction or all,
reproduction
just
or
look at
just look at
morphology.
morphology.
So most
So
of
most of
organisms
organisms,
even till
even till day,
they use
they
lot of
use a lot of
morphological
morphological
based
based
taxonomy.
taxonomy.
So for
So
example,
for
in
example, in
ants,
ants,
a lot of
a lot
those
of
different
those different
species
species
are
are
differentiation
differentiation
based on
based on
morphology.
morphology.
Because
Because
the idea
the
behind
idea
using
behind using
morphology is that
morphology is that
morphology is a
morphology
strong
is a
predictor
strong
of
predictor of
species,
because
species
species
doesn't might not
doesn't
have
might not have
much different
much different
individuals.
individuals.
They tend to look
They tend to
similar
look similar
in lot of those
in lot of those
aspects,
aspects,
be it in
be it
color,
in color,
shape,
shape,
size,
size,
or
or
behavior,
behavior,
right?
right?
So yeah,
So yeah,
so we
so
still
we
use
still use
a lot of
a lot of
biological
biological
and
and
uh,
uh,
morphological species
morphological species
concept,
concept,
but
but
they still
they
depend
still
like
depend
which
like
is
which is
the one we
the
should
one
use.
we should use.
So there is
So
no
there is
clear
no
cut
clear cut
thing on
thing on
which is the
which is the
species
species
concept we should
concept we
use,
should use,
but lot
but
of
lot of
taxonomists or people
taxonomists or
who
people who
describe new
describe new
species,
species,
they tend to
they
use a
tend to use a
combination of
combination
multiple
of
things.
multiple things.
They use
They use
molecular data,
molecular
they use
data, they use
morphological data,
morphological data,
they use
they use
uh,
uh,
reproductive
reproductive
structures.
structures.
They use
They
multiple
use
these
multiple
days they
these
use
days they
multiple
use
set of
multiple set of
this concept
this
to say
concept to
these are
say
different
these are different
species
species
versus these are not.
versus these are not.
So yeah,
So yeah,
that's
that's a
species.
species.
And
And
community,
community.
uh
Uh,
what do you think is
what
a
do you think is a
community or
community or
species community?
species community?
So what does the
So what
term
does the term
community
community
brings to your mind?
brings to your mind?
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
the word
the word
community is
community
closely
is
related to
closely related to
species itself.
species itself.
uh,
Uh,
it's nothing
it's
but
nothing but
is a group of
is a group of
interacting
interacting
species
species
that
that
inhabit a
inhabit a
particular
particular
location
location
at a
at
particular
a
time.
particular time.
So
So
there are a lot of
there are a lot of
species
species
of
of
different taxa or
different taxa
same
or
taxa
same taxa
that are
that are
at a location at a
or at
particular
a
time.
particular time.
That's what we call a
That's what we
community,
call a community.
right? If you want
Right?
to
If you
go
want to
and
go and
look at all the
look at all the
plants
plants
in
in
a
a
specific
specific
area.
area.
So
So,
like in your
in
garden,
your
kitchen
garden,
garden,
kitchen garden, or
just outside,
just outside,
on
on
across
or
the
across
footpath.
the footpath.
So all those
So all those
plants
plants
that you see
that you
in that
see in that
area
area
can be called a
can be called a
community.
community.
So you
So
generally
you
referred
generally
as
refer
a plant
is a plant
communities,
communities,
because whatever the
because
taxa
whatever the
you're
taxa
using.
you're using.
So
So
people who
so people
study
who study
communities are called
communities are
community
called community
ecologists,
ecologists,
and they study
and they
number of
study number of
species in a
species in a
particular
particular
location,
location,
and they can
and
ask
they
why
can ask
species
why
change over
species change over
time,
time,
or
or
what different
what
species
different
are there,
species are there.
why,
So
why, why are
why are
species
species
the way they
the
are.
way they are?
But they look at
But they look at
a lot of
a lot of
species at the
species
same
at
time.
the same time.
So they also
So
try
they
to
also
look
try
at
to look at
communities in different
communities in
location,
different
and
location
see
and
ask
see
why
ask
the number of
why the number
species
of
vary
species
across
varied across
locations,
locations.
right?
Right?
So when they
So
study
when they study
communities,
communities, they
actually
have to actually
characterize the
characterize the
communities.
communities,
They
right?
just can't say there
Just
is a
can't say there is a
community,
community,
because
because
it's not easy to
it's not easy
understand,
to
like
understand, like
just
just
like
like
talking about a single
talking about a
species
single
versus
species versus
talking about a bunch
talking
of
about a bunch
species.
of
If it's a
species.
single
If it's a
species,
single
you can
species,
say
you can say
it will be
it
easier
will
to
be
say,
easier to say,
I saw this
I saw
species
this
X
species
doing
X
this thing,
doing this thing,
or I saw
or
these
I
many
saw
people
this
in
many
species
people
Y,
species Y,
so on.
so on.
But when you're
But
studying
when you're
multiple
studying multiple
species,
species,
you have to
you have to
characterize
characterize
to be able to
to be able
describe
to
or
describe or
understand the community
understand the
better.
community better.
So
So
there are a lot of
there are a lot of
attributes that you
attributes
measure
that you
of
measure of
communities to be able
communities
to
to be able to
describe
describe
how those
how those
communities are,
communities are,
right?
right?
You use
You
terms
use
such as
terms such
species
as species
richness,
richness,
species
species
diversity,
diversity,
species
species
evenness,
evenness,
together or
together or
independently,
independently,
right? These are
right?
the main
These are
things
the
that
main things that
generally community
generally
ecologists
community
use.
ecologists use.
So what is
So what
species
is
richness?
species richness?
It's just simple.
It's just simple.
Species richness, how
Species
many
richness, how
species are
many
there
species are there
in that area,
in that
or
area
in that
or in
community
that
that you're
community that you're
trying to
trying
understand
to
or study.
understand or study.
Species
Species
diversity,
diversity,
uh,
uh,
it's similar to
it's similar
richness
to
but
richness
slightly
but
different.
slightly different.
So because
So
here you
because
are
here you are
including
including
species
species number of
species
species
along with the
along with
abundance
the
of each
abundance of
species.
each
So you're
species.
also
So
not
you're
only
also
looking
not
at
only looking at
how many
how
species
many
are there,
species
you're
are
also
there,
looking
you're
how
also
many
looking how many
individuals of each
individuals of
species
each
are there,
species are there,
and trying to
and
use
trying to
those things
use
to
those things
characterize
to
the
characterize
community.
the community.
Right, there are
Right?
multiple
There are multiple
indices
indices
that are
that
used
are
to
used to
understand,
understand
to measure
to
species
measure
diversity.
species
One
diversity.
of them is
One of them is
Shannon's, there's
Shannon's, there's
Simpson's,
Simpson's,
there are a whole
there are
bunch
a
of
whole bunch
methods.
of methods.
And
And
species evenness.
species evenness.
So evenness
So
talks
evenness
about
talks about,
just the
just the
abundance.
abundance.
So
So how
evenly those
evenly those
abundances
abundances
of a species
of
present in the
species present in the
community.
community are.
So if
So
all the
if all the
individuals, let's say if
individuals,
there are
let's
three
say if there are three
species,
species,
all the
all the
individuals are
individuals
present in
are
equal
present in
numbers,
equal numbers,
we call that
we call that
community as
community
highly
as
even,
highly even,
because
because there all of
species
them
are
species are
present in equal
present in
numbers.
equal numbers.
While
While
in a community
in a
where
community where
there is one
there is
species
one
that is
species
present
that
in
is
higher
present in
number,
higher number,
let's say
let's say
species X,
species
species
X,
Y,
species
species
Y,
Z.
species Z.
Species X, we
Species
have seven
X, we have seven
individuals.
individuals.
Species Y, two
Species Y, two
individuals.
individuals.
Species Z,
Species
one
Z,
individual.
one individual.
You have
You have
species X
species
being,
X being,
you know,
you know,
lot
lot
higher in
higher in
abundance, while
abundance,
the other
while
two
the
species
other
are
two
very
species
low
are
in
very low
abundance,
in abundance,
right?
right?
So the
So
abundance
the
is
abundance
not
is not
evenly
evenly
distributed
distributed
across these
across
species.
these
So you
species.
call
So
that
you call that
community
community
uneven,
uneven
compared to a
compared to
community
a
where you
community
have
where you have
three species
three
each,
species each,
three
three
individuals each,
individuals each,
right?
right?
So
So
these are the
these are the
different things
different things
we generally
we
use
generally
to
use to
understand
understand
communities.
communities.
Let's just
Let's
go
just
ahead
go
and
ahead
just
and
have a
just
look.
have a look.
So we
So we
generally try to
generally
use
trying to use
growth form and
growth form and
structure.
structure,
Like
like
when you're
when you're
characterizing
characterizing
communities,
communities,
you
you just
can say,
can say,
these
these trees,
shrubs,
there's
these are
shrubs,
hubs
these are
and
hubs
grasses.
and grasses.
Or you
Or
use the
you use
dominance,
the
which
dominance,
species
which
is dominant.
species is dominant.
For
For
instance,
instance,
like the sal
like the
forest
sal
in this
forest
picture.
in this picture.
Here they're
Here
just
they are
salt
just
trees.
salt trees.
Or you use
Or you
relative
use relative
abundance.
abundance.
Uh,
Uh,
how many
how
individuals
many
are there
individuals
of
are
this
there of
particular
this particular
species in
species
response
in
to
response to
the whole number
the
of
whole number of
species,
species,
right?
right?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
give me a sec,
just give me a
guys.
sec, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry.
So
So
yeah, we
Yeah,
use
we
relative
use
abundance
relative
also
abundance also
to characterize
to
communities.
characterize communities.
Yeah, just as
Yeah,
let's just
let's
go over
just
this
go over
example,
this example,
right?
right?
So let's say we
So
have
let's
two
say we have two
communities.
communities.
Each shape
Each shape
represents
represents
a
a
species,
species,
right? And
right?
the number of
And the number of number of
those,
those,
let's say,
let's say,
represent
represent
abundance.
abundance.
Which species
Which species
has,
has,
sorry, which
sorry,
community
which community
has greater
has greater
species
species
and which has
and which
greater
has greater
evenness.
evenness.
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
feel free to
feel free to
work this
work this
example out,
example out
and
and
yeah,
yeah,
type out the
type out
answers,
the
or you can
answers, or
speak
you
out the
can speak out
answers.
the answers also.
Each shape
Each shape
is a different
is a different
species.
species.
So across
So
these two
across these two
communities,
communities,
which community
which community
has higher
has higher
species
species,
richness or higher
richness, or
number of
higher number of
species,
species,
and which
and
community
which
has
community has
greater
greater
evenness.
evenness.
Okay,
Okay,
someone
someone
has an answer.
has an answer.
Anybody more?
Anybody more?
You can
You can
yeah,
yeah,
write down your
write down
answers
your
also.
answers
So
also.
we'll
So
slowly
we'll
work out
slowly
this
work out
example,
this
right?
example, right?
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
this
this
species, how
species,
many
how
individuals do
many
you have?
individuals do you have?
So let's
So
just talk
let's
about
just
the
talk about
species
the
first.
species first.
This is one,
This is one.
this is
This
two,
is two.
this is
This is
three,
three.
this is
This
four,
is four.
this is five,
This is five.
right?
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
similarly,
Similarly,
one,
one,
two,
two,
three,
three,
four,
four,
and five,
and five.
right?
Right?
So
So
both
both
species,
species, so both communities
have equal
have
number of
equal
species.
number
The
of
species
species. The
richness is
species richness
five
is five
for both the
for both the
communities,
communities.
right?
Right?
But from
But
the picture
from the
itself,
picture
I
itself,
think you can
I
make
think you
out
can make out
which community
which
is
community
even
is even
versus which
versus
community
which
is
community
relatively
is
lesser
relatively
even.
lesser even.
So
So
here in
here
community
in
one,
community one,
we have
we
just
have
four
just four
individuals
individuals
of
of
four
four
species,
species, one with one
each,
individual each,
while most of
while most
those
of those are,
are of
are
species
of
one.
species
But
one.
here
But here
we have
we
five
have
individuals
five
of
individuals of
every
every
species.
species.
So we have,
So we have, if
write
you
the
write the
abundance of each
abundance of each
species, it's five,
species,
five,
it's
five
five,
each.
five, five each. One,
All these five
all these
species.
five species.
So
So
the community
the
B
community B
is
is
much more even
much more
compared to
even
community
compared to
A.
community A.
So
So when you're
talking about
talking about
evenness,
evenness,
you have to
you have
compare
to compare
with respect,
with respect,
right? There
right?
can be another
There can be
community
another
which
community
is,
which is,
when you
when
compare
you
to
compare
that
to
community,
that
there can be
community, there
community
can be
C,
community
where
C, where
community A can
community
be
A
much
can
more
be
even
much more
compared to
even compared
community
to
C.
community C also.
So
So
you talk
you
about,
talk
when you're
about,
talking
when
about
you are talking
evenness,
about evenness,
you're talking
you're talking
in relation
in
to
relation
another
to
community.
another community.
So that's one thing
So
that you
that's one
should
thing
not
that you should
forget.
not forget.
But species
But
richness,
species
you can just
richness,
say,
you can just
because
say, because you just say,
think of
think
that
of that
community itself.
community itself.
So other way
So
of
other way of
understanding
understanding
communities
communities
is,
is,
grouping
grouping
species
species
into
into
similar
similar
guilds,
guilds,
right?
right?
Or guilds
Or
or
guilds or
groups is the
groups
same
is
word.
the same word.
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
which
which
based on
based on
morphologically, or
morphologically, or
which of
which
these
of
belong
these
to the
belong
same
to the
guild.
same guild.
You don't
You
not
don't
necessarily
not
need to
necessarily
know
need
the
to know
names,
the names,
but
but
you can
you can
make out them, I
make out
guess.
them, I guess.
So which
So
of
which
these,
of these,
just use the
just
letters
use
to
the
say
letters to
which
say which
belong to the
belong
similar
to the similar
guild
guild
in terms of
in terms of
foraging,
foraging,
or
or
in terms of
in terms
body
of body
shapes or
shapes
size.
or size.
uh
Uh,
C and
C and
F.
F.
Okay.
Okay.
Any more
Any more
guesses?
guesses?
Okay.
Okay.
So
So
yeah, let's
yeah,
just go
let's just
ahead
go
then.
ahead then.
Just look at this
Just look at
body
this
shapes,
body shapes,
similarity in body
similarity in
shapes,
body shapes,
right?
right?
Uh,
Uh,
at least
at least
these two
these
guys
two
look
guys look
similar,
similar,
right?
right?
Orangish bill,
Orangish
the
bill, the
body
body
predominantly white, and
predominantly
they're
white, and they are
largely flying
largely
around.
flying around.
And then if you
And
look at
then
the
if you
shape
look at the
of the
shape of
beaks
the
and the
beaks
shape
and
of
the
the
shape
body,
of the body,
these three look
these three
similar.
look similar.
And
While
the bill
the
or
bill
the beak
or
of
the
these
beak
two
of these two
species
species
look similar.
look similar.
So
So
these are
these are
sunbirds,
sunbirds,
purple.
purple.
I'm not sure
I'm
which
not sure
species
which
is
species
this.
is this.
And these are
And these are
woodpeckers.
woodpeckers.
If you know, they
If you know,
just
they
peck
just
around
peck around
for in
for and
forage on
forage
tree
on
trunks,
tree trunks,
and sometimes on
and
the ground
sometimes on the
also.
ground also.
And
And
this is a
this is
tern,
a
and this is
tern,
a
and this
skimmer.
is a
This is
skimmer,
Indian
is
skimmer.
Indian skimmer.
So these are
So these are
piscivorous or
piscivorous or
fish-eating birds.
fish-eating birds.
So
So
generally, we also
generally, we also
use a lot of these
use a lot of these
characters.
characters. So
Morphologically, they look
morphologically, they look
similar
similar
in shape,
in
size,
shape,
also the
size, also
beak
the beak
shape
shape
majorly,
majorly,
and in their
and in the
behavior,
behavior,
these
these
together form a
together
gate.
form a
So
guild.
we use a
So
lot
we
of
use
other
a lot of other
ways to
ways to
group
group
species also,
species also,
right?
right?
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
if you have
if
anything
you have
up,
anything up,
yeah, I will be
yeah,
free
I will be
to
free to
discuss that
discuss that
before going
before
slightly
going
ahead.
slightly ahead.
If now we'll
If now we'll
move on
move on
to
to
ecological
ecological
succession,
succession,
right?
right?
Ecological
Ecological
succession
succession
is a concept
is a
that we have
concept that we
been,
have been,
you know,
you know,
coming
coming
across.
across,
We might have come
we might
across
have
it
come
for a
across
long
for a
time.
long time.
So what is
So, what
ecological
is
succession?
ecological succession?
It's
It's
just
just
succession, or
succession, or
basically it's a
basically it's a
process where
process where
communities,
communities,
species
species
communities,
communities,
we just
we
discussed
just
what is
discuss
species,
what is
what is a
species, what is a
community,
community,
and now
and now
eh,
a,
here a
here a
communities
communities
gets
gets
replaced
replaced
one over
one
another
over another
over time.
over time.
So this
So this
process is
process
called
is
ecological
called ecological
succession.
succession.
So there are
So
different
there are
types of
different types
ecological
of
succession.
ecological
We just
succession. We
will
just will
discuss slowly.
discuss slowly.
So we'll
So
have
we'll
pioneer
have
species,
pioneer
or the
species,
species
or the
that
species that
come
come
for the
for
first
the
time in
first
an
time in
area,
an
or
area,
called
or
pioneer
called pioneer
species.
species.
And then
And
there are
then there are
intermediate
intermediate
species
species
that
that
succeed the pioneer
succeed the pioneer
species. And then
species.
there is
And then
this
there is this
climax
climax
community,
community,
right?
right?
So
So
let's just
let's
start.
just start.
There is
No,
a
there is a
uh,
uh,
fresh
fresh
volcanic
volcanic
eruption, and then there
eruption,
is
and
an
then there is an
island formed in the
island
middle
formed
of the
in the middle
ocean,
of the ocean,
right?
right?
So
So
when once the
when once the
volcano
volcano
cools and the
cools
island
and
on the island,
on the island,
what
what
it leaves
it
behind
leaves
is a
behind
bunch of
is a
bare
bunch of bare
rocks.
rocks.
So the
So
first
the first
group of
group of
organisms that
organisms that
colonize
colonize
on these bare
on these bare
rocks
rocks
are
are
lichens. So there are
lichens. So
different
there are
types of
different types of
lichens based
lichens
on
based on where they are
present, or the
present
shape
or
of
the
them:
shape of them:
folios,
folios,
fruticose,
fruticose,
crustose.
crustose.
So
So
different
so
types of
different types of
lichens form.
lichens form.
And then
And
these
then these
lichens tend to
lichens tend
break
to
down the
break down
rocks
the rocks
because
because
they
they
photosynthesize. So
photosynthesize. So
lichens, if you
lichens, if you
know,
know,
are is
is
basically a
basically a
mutualistic
mutualistic
relationship
relationship
between
between
bacteria
bacteria
and a fungi,
and a fungi,
right?
right?
uh,
Uh,
so
so
one partner
one partner
provides
provides
protection, the other
protection, the
partner
other
provides
partner
food.
provides food.
So
So
that is lichen.
that is lichen.
So
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 as they
as
grow,
they grow,
the
the
chemical
chemical
they produce
they
and the
produce, and the
weathering of
weathering
the
of
rocks
the
being
rocks being
apart from that
apart from that
leads to
leads to
formation of
formation of
small amount of
small
soil,
amount of
right?
soil, right?
So
So
this offers
this
perfect
offers
ground
perfect
for
ground for
moss to come
moss
up.
to come up.
And
And
from moss
from
you get
moss you get
ferns,
ferns,
and then
and then
slowly you
you
get
get
grasses as the
grasses as the
amount of
amount
soil
of soil
increases, because
increases, because
there is
there is
uh,
uh,
you know physical
physical
weathering
weathering
happening, and there's
happening, and there is
biological
biological
weathering that is
weathering
happening
that is
because
happening
of these
because of these
communities itself.
communities itself.
There is a
There is a
formation of
formation
soil
of
also that
soil also
happens.
that happens.
And then along
And
with
then
that we
along with
have
that we have
grasses and
grasses
perennial
and perennial
plants coming up.
plants coming up.
So
So
so all the
so
species
all the
that come
species that
initially
come
are
initially are
pioneers, and then
pioneers, and
slowly
then
we have
slowly we have
grasses and
grasses and
shrubland,
shrubland,
and
and then
then
slowly,
as those
as those
communities
communities
grow older,
grow
and then it
older, and then it
so and
so
then it
and
leads
then
to
it leads
formation
to
of a
formation of
climax
a
community,
climax
where
community, where
there isn't
there isn't
much
much
changing around
changing
that
around that
happens after
happens
this
after
climax
this
community.
climax community.
So we call it
So we
climax
call it
because
climax
that's the
because
end
that's the end
in most of the
in most of the
cases where
cases
there
where
isn't
there
much
isn't
change
much change
if there is no
if there is no
disturbance
disturbance
happening,
happening,
right?
right?
uh,
Uh,
the
so
other thing
the other
is
thing is
each of the
each of the
species
species
being
being
present at a
present
stage
at
of
a stage of
succession
succession
actually
actually
provides a
provides
stepping
a
stone
stepping
for
stone for
the next
the
stage
next
species
stage
to come.
species to come.
Right here,
Right here,
lichens breaking
lichens
down,
breaking down,
and the
and
weathering
the weathering
happening leads
happening leads
can
can
then brings up the
then brings up the
mosses.
mosses.
Here,
Here,
similarly,
similarly,
it happens
it
for
happens
all
for
across
all
all the
across all the
stages.
stages.
And so
And
this is
so this
primary
is
section.
primary
It's
section.
happening
It's
from the
happening from
beginning.
the beginning.
There is
There
nothing
is
there.
nothing in the beginning.
So while in
So while
secondary
in secondary
succession, what
succession, what
happens?
happens? There is an event,
Catastrophic event.
catastrophic
So
event.
mostly
So
it happens
mostly
in
it happens in
fires, or it
fires,
can be
or it can be
cyclones,
cyclones,
or it can
or
be
it can be
earthquakes, or
earthquakes, or
inundation of
inundation of
earth also.
earth also.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
So
So
there's a
there
major
is a major
disturbance that
disturbance
happens
that happens
initially,
initially,
and post
and
that
post that
disturbance,
disturbance,
slowly the
slowly
pioneer
the
species
pioneer
comes up.
species comes up.
So here
So
the
here the
pioneers not
pioneers not
necessarily be
necessarily be
lichens. You
lichens.
can just
You
start
can
from
just start
grasses
from
also.
grasses also.
It depends
It depends
on where
on
the
where
secondary
the
succession
secondary
is
succession
happening.
is actually happening.
Then we have
Then we have
intermediate species,
intermediate
and then
species,
we
and
have the
then we have
similar
the similar
climax community,
climax community,
right?
right?
And
And
lot of
those lot
areas
of
get
areas
stuck
get stuck
between
between
fire and
fire and
grass,
grass
shrubland.
shrubland.
So
So
it kind of
it kind of
cycles there.
cycles there.
So if the
So if the
succession
succession
happens there,
happens there,
like in a
like in a
cycling fashion,
cycling
like
fashion,
there
like
is a fire,
there is a fire,
the fire
the
drops
fire
down
drops down
because there is
because
nothing
there is
left to
nothing
burn,
left to burn,
and the
and
grasses
the
grow
grasses
because
grow
there is no
because there is
fire,
no fire,
and then the
and then
grasses
the
grow so
grasses grow
much
so
that
much that
one fire
one fire
happens, everything
happens,
goes back.
everything goes back.
So it
So
just
it
kinds of
just kinds of
happens in
happens in
cyclical way,
cyclical way
because
because
fire,
fire
grass, fire, grass.
fire grass.
So
So
so sometimes
sometimes those type of
secondary
secondary
succession can be
succession
called
can be
as
called as
cycling
cycling
succession.
succession also.
And
And
depending on where
depending
the
on where the
succession
succession
happens,
happens,
there are different
there are
types
different types
of
of
succession.
succession.
And
And
there are,
there are,
you can also
you can also
classify the
classify the
climax
climax
communities
communities
based on
based
different
on.
types. So so
So
if it's
if it's
climatic
climatic
factors
factors that
uh,
uh,
that
that
determine
determine
the
the
climatic
sorry,
factors that
climatic
determine the
factors
climax
determining the
community, then
climax
we call
community, then we call
climatic
climatic
uh,
uh,
climax. Whether if
climax.
it's soil
Whether if it's
factors,
soil factors,
then edaphic.
then edaphic.
Similarly,
Similarly,
catastrophic events
catastrophic events
also
also
are
are
responsible.
responsible.
And
And
there is a
there is a
disclaimax.
disclimax.
So human
So
disturbance
human
or
disturbance or
domestic animals
domestic animals
messing around with the
messing around
ecological
with the ecological
succession
succession
uh,
uh,
it leads
it
to,
leads to,
we refer to
we
it as
refer to it as
disclaimax.
disclimax.
Just a sec.
Just a sec. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
yeah.
yeah.
So and
So
then,
and then,
yeah, you might have
yeah, you
heard
might have heard
this
this
concept,
concept,
keystone
keystone
species.
species.
Anybody?
Anybody?
What do you guys
What do you
think is
guys
a
think
keystone
is a keystone
species?
species?
I think we might
I
have
think we
already
might have already
discussed keystone
discussed keystone
species,
species,
but still.
but still.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So
yeah, this
yeah,
is
this
a
is a
species.
species.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah, species
yeah,
which
species
support
which
other
support
species
other
to thrive
species to
on them.
thrive on them.
Mm,
Mm,
not
not
really, but the
really, but the
definition is
definition is
close.
close.
Uh,
Uh,
every species
supports
supports
another
another species.
species.
So,
So,
but in
but
keystone
in keystone
species,
species,
we have
we
a
have
species
a
that had
species that had
disproportionately greater
disproportionately
effect
greater effect
compared to their
compared to their
abundance,
abundance,
right?
right?
And or
And or
disproportionately greater
disproportionately greater
contribution
contribution
or support
or
that they
support
provide to
that they
other
provide to
species.
other species.
Like if you
Like
talk
if you
about the
talk
example
about the
of
example
Ficus
of Ficus
bengalensis,
bengalensis or
the banyan
the
tree
banyan tree
that we
that
we see
we
in a lot
see
of
in a
villages
lot of
and
villages and
towns and cities
towns and
also.
cities also.
So
So
this species
this
is a keystone
species is a
species
keystone
because it
species because it
provides
provides
food,
food, especially
the figs
the
are
figs
formed
are
around
formed
those
around
time
those time
when there is no
when
other
there is no
species
other
that
species
is
that
fruiting
is
around,
fruiting around, mostly in the
middle of the summer
middle of the summer
sometimes,
sometimes,
right?
right?
And then it has a
And then it has a
disproportionate effect
disproportionate
on
effect
a bunch
on
of
a bunch of lot of
species.
species.
So
So
that's why
that's why
it is a
it is a
keystone species.
keystone species.
And there are a
And
lot of
there are a lot of
species
species
across,
across,
uh, you know, across taxa
across
that are
taxa that
keystone
are
species.
keystone species.
So
So
going back
going
again,
back again,
we're discussing
we're
about
discussing about
different aspects
different
of
aspects of
communities, right?
communities, right?
Uh,
Uh,
so there is this
so
thing
there is
called
this thing
dominance
called dominance
diversity
diversity
relationships.
relationships.
So
So
dominant species
dominant
generally
species
play a
generally play
crucial
a
role
crucial
in
role in
regulating species
regulating species
diversity and
diversity and
ecosystem
ecosystem
productivity.
productivity.
So
So
because they are present
because they
in
are present in
so huge,
so huge
in
in
abundance,
abundance,
so they
so
has
they has
crucial role
crucial role
in
in
regulating what all
regulating what
species
all
are can
species
be
are can
present
be
because
present
of
because
them
of them
or
or
other things.
other things.
For example,
For example,
numerically dominant
numerically
species
dominant
in a
species
forest
in a
community
forest community
can decrease
can
species
decrease
diversity
species
by
diversity by
influencing the
influencing the
establishment of new
establishment of
species.
new species.
So, for instance, if
So,
you're
for instance, if
looking
you're
in a
looking
forest
in a
where there is a
forest where
single
there's a single
species
species
that is
that is
dominant in
dominant
terms of
in terms of
their
their
abundance,
abundance,
it can actually
it can
lead
actually
to
lead to uh,
decrease in
decrease
species
in
diversity
species
because it
diversity
doesn't
because it
allow
doesn't
other new
allow other
species to
new
come
species to
because
come because it has
it has
already
already kind of established
established
itself in those
itself in those
areas.
areas.
Other
Other
species may not,
species
it's
may
not
not, it's
easy
not
for other
easy for
species to
other
come,
species to come and
establish
establish
themselves.
themselves.
So
So
that's how
that's how
this
this
dominance of a
dominance of
particular
a
species
particular
can
species
actually
can
affect
actually affect
diversity of other
diversity of other
species,
species,
right?
right?
So this is
So
similar
this is similar
example that we
example
have
that
already
we have
looked at.
already looked at.
If you want to
If you want
go
to
ahead, we
go
can do
ahead, we
it,
can do
or we
it,
can
or we can
move on
move
also.
on also.
Both is okay,
Both is okay,
but a
but
quick
a
glance
quick
will tell
glance
you
will tell you
which community
which
has
community
higher.
has higher.
So
So
both community
both
one and
community one
community
and
two
community
have
two have
the same
the
four
same four
species,
species,
while community
while
has
community
even
has
number of
even number of
individuals,
individuals,
and community
and
two
community two
has
has uneven,
relatively
relatively
less even
less even
in terms of
in terms of
species
the species
distribution, abundance
distribution, abundance
distributions.
distributions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
species richness both
specialishness
community
both
A and
community
B,
A and B,
and then
and then
evenness.
evenness.
One
A
is
one is
relatively
relatively
comparatively more even.
comparatively more even.
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
so since
so
we are
since we
discussing
are discussing
community, so this
community,
is
so this is
one of the way
one
of
of the way of we
community
community
ecologists
ecologists
document
document
or measure
or measure
species
species
diversity.
diversity.
So there are
So there are
these
these
are
are more or less
similar
similar
indices.
indices.
So one is
So one is
Simpson, the other is
Simpson, the other
Shannon
is
Weiner
Shannon Weiner
index.
index.
One is
One
denoted
is
by D
denoted by D
mostly, and then
mostly,
this is
and
by
then this is
H.
by H.
So the
So the
major difference
major
is
difference
it
is
considers
it
both
considers
richness and
both richness and
evenness,
evenness,
but compared to
but compared
Shannon,
to Shannon,
it is more
it is
influenced
more
by evenness
influenced by
than
evenness
richness.
than richness.
So
So
if the community
if the
is much
community
more
is much
even,
more even,
it has a
it has a
disproportionate effect on
disproportionate effect
Simpson
on
index,
Simpson index,
while Shannon
while
Weiner
Shannon Weiner
kind of
kind of
equally gives
equally
importance
gives
to both
importance to both
richness and
richness and
evenness.
evenness.
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
so
that's
it's just
so it's
simple.
just simple.
So it's
So
summation
it's
of
summation of
p square
p square
of 1 to r.
of 1 to
P
r.
is basically
P
the
is basically
proportion
the
of
proportion
individuals
of
of a
individuals of a
particular
particular
species
species
in the whole
in the
community.
whole
So how do we
community. So how do
calculate
we
the
calculate the
proportion?
proportion?
Let's say 10
Let's say
individuals
10
are there in the
individuals are there in the
community.
community.
Species A has
Species A
4
has 4
individuals.
individuals.
It's 4 by
It's
10.
4 by
So
10.
that's the
So
proportion
that's
of
the proportion
species
of
A.
species A.
So that's how
So that's
you
how you
calculate,
calculate,
and then you
and then
square
you
it,
square it,
and you sum it
and you
up
sum it
from
up
for all
from
those
for all
species
those
in that
species in
community.
that community.
So if you don't
So if you
understand it,
don't
don't worry.
understand it,
We'll
don't worry. We'll
go ahead with
go
an
ahead with
example
an
also.
example also.
Similarly,
Similarly,
in Shannon,
in Shannon,
You
You
also
also calculate
calculate
proportions,
proportions,
but
but
you
you
multiply
multiply
proportion
proportion with
with
ln
ln
pi,
pi,
which
which
is
basically
basically
natural
natural
logarithm
logarithm
of
of
proportion,
proportion,
and then you
and then you
sum it
sum it
across all
across
the
all the
species.
species. So
So
yeah,
yeah,
just look at this
just look at this
example
example
where we have
where
two
we have two
communities of
communities
birds,
of birds,
lake A
Lake
and
A
lake B.
and Lake B.
Lake A
Lake
has,
A
let's say,
has, let's say,
one, two,
one, two,
three,
three,
four, five
four, five
species.
species.
Similarly,
Similarly,
Lake B
Lake B
also
also
one, two,
one, two,
three,
three,
four,
four,
five
five
species.
species.
Both species, both
Both
lakes
lakes
have
have
similar
similar
amount of
amount of
species.
species.
So let's just
So
go
let's just
ahead
go ahead
and calculate
and calculate
Shannon's index.
Shannon's index.
Just before I
Just
go
before
ahead,
I go ahead,
if you guys are
if you guys are
comfortable with
comfortable with
calculating,
calculating,
I can wait
I
and we
can
can
wait and we can
calculate
calculate
and discuss the
and
answers
discuss the
later,
answers later,
because the
because the
formulas are here.
formulas are here.
If you want
If you
to
want to
use those
use
formulas
those
and calculate
formulas
at
and
least
calculate at
the
least
Simpson
the
index, which is
Simpson
much
index,
more
which is
easier,
much more easier,
I can wait
I
and
can
we
wait
can
and
work
we
through
can
the
work through the
process.
process.
If you just
If
want
you
me to
just
go
want me
over
to
the
go over the
answers,
answers
or how do we
or how do we
calculate by
calculate
myself,
by
I can
myself, I can
do
go
that.
through that.
So it's up to you
So it's
guys.
up to you guys.
Do you want to
Do
do
you
it by
want to do it by
yourself and then
yourself
me
and
to
then me
discuss
to
later?
discuss later?
Okay,
Okay,
then I will
then
go ahead
I
with
will
the
go ahead with
example.
the example.
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
so
so
we have these
we
two
have
lakes,
these
right?
two lakes,
Each has
right?
five
Each has
species.
five species each.
So here the
So
first thing
here
that
the
we have
first
to
thing
do
that we had to do
is
is
species. So we
species.
had to
So
make a
we had to
table
make a
something like
table
this,
something like this,
right?
right?
All the five
All the
species we
five
have,
species we
and
have,
then the
and
count.
then the count.
In Lake A,
In Lake A,
we have
we
the species
have the
5,
species 5,
the number of
the number of
individuals we had to
individuals
write,
we had to write,
right? That is
right? That
Ni.
is Ni.
And then you
And then you
calculate Ni by
calculate
N,
Ni by
which is
N, which is
basically the
basically the
proportion.
proportion.
So
So
that's
that's
what
what
is denoted in
is
the
denoted in
formula
the
as
formula
P,
as P,
right?
right?
Here is
Here
Ni by
is
N.
Ni by
So
N. So
it's broken down
it's
simple.
broken down simple.
So
So
calculating the
calculating
proportion
the
of
proportion
species
of
1,
species
it's
1,
1
it's
by
1 by
25, total number
25,
of
total number
individuals
of
in that
individuals in
community.
that community.
And the proportion
And the
is
proportion is
0.04.
0.04.
Then you square
Then you
that value.
square that value.
Okay, it's
Okay, it's
0.0016.
0.0016.
It's the same for
It's the
all
same
these
for
five
all the
species.
five species.
While in
While
community
in
B,
community B,
since we have
since we have
five individuals
five
per
individuals
species,
per
it's 5 by
species, it's 5 by
25. It's
25,
point
it's
2,
point 0.2,
0.04.
0.04.
Now what you
Now
do
what you do
is
is
basically,
basically
when once you have
when
the
once you have the
proportions, you just
proportions,
add
you
up
just
all
add
those
up all those
proportions
proportions
across all the
across all the
species.
species.
And that gives
And that gives
0.71
0.71
for community
for
1
community 1
and
and
0.2
zero
for
point 0.2 for
community 2.
community 2.
If you
If
remember,
you remember,
so in
so in
Simpson's
Simpson's
index, after
index,
we
after we
calculate,
calculate,
the
the
actual value
actual
is
value is
represented as 1
represented as
minus
1
d.
minus d.
So you
So you
subtract
subtract
this thing,
this thing,
the
the
the value, the
the value,
summation
the
of summation value
summation
from
value
1.
from
So
1.
1 minus
So
d
1
gives
minus d gives
0.29,
0.29.
and 1 minus
And
d
1
here
minus
gives
d
zero
here
point 0.8.
gives 0.8.
So
So
if you have a
if
higher
you have a
1 minus
higher
d
1 minus
value,
d value,
you say
you say
the
the
diversity
diversity
according to Simpson's
according to
index is
Simpson's index
higher
is higher
in this
in
community.
this community.
So here
So
for
here for
uh,
uh,
these lake
these lake
examples, Lake
examples,
B
Lake
has
B
higher
has
Simpson
higher Simpson
diversity
diversity
compared to Lake A.
compared to Lake A.
Right? Hope
Right?
it is
Hope
clear
it is
as
clear
of now.
as of now.
So we
So
use 1
we
minus
use 1
d
minus d
as a reason
as
to
a reason
to
to
don't
to
mess up,
don't mess up,
just for
just for
ease.
ease.
Or you can just
Or you can
use
just use
d also,
d
but the
also,
thing
but
is
the
you
thing
have
is
to
you have to
interpret in
interpret
terms
in terms
of
of
reverse.
reverse.
The
No,
lesser
the
the value, the
lesser the
higher
value,
the
the higher
diversity.
the
So
diversity.
just to
So
ease it
just
up,
to ease it up,
you can
you can
sometimes
sometimes you can
subtract it from 1,
subtract it from 1.
right?
Right?
So
So
if you remember,
if you
as I was
remember,
saying
as I was
earlier,
saying earlier,
that Simpson
that
index
Simpson index
gives higher
gives higher
weightage to
weightage to
evenness,
evenness.
right?
Right?
That's why
That's why
a species
a
community
species
that is
community that
highly
is
even
highly even
has higher
has higher
diversity,
diversity,
zero point 0.8,
zero point 0.8,
compared to community
compared to
that is
community that is
uneven,
uneven,
has
has
lesser
lesser
diversity,
Shannon diversity.
right?
Right?
Hope this is clear.
Hope this is clear.
Simpsons index.
Simpsons index.
If we are
If
clear,
we are clear,
then we'll
then
move
we'll
slightly
move
ahead
slightly ahead
with the
with the
Shannons.
Shannons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Kalani.
Hi,
Yeah, you can
Kalani. Yeah,
unmute
you can
yourself and
unmute
ask,
yourself
or
and
you can
ask,
type
or
in
you
the
can
chat
type in the
box.
chat box.
Yeah, you have
Yeah,
raised a
you have
hand.
raised a hand.
That's why.
That's why.
So you
So you
basically,
basically,
it's better
it's
if
better
you. It
if
will be
you. It
easy
will be
when you
easy
use
when you do
pen
it
and
with
paper.
pen and paper.
You
You
had to
write.
write
You
down
have
the
to write down
counts,
the
number
counts,
of
number of
individuals
individuals
per
per
species.
species.
You divide
You
it by the
divide it
total
by the
number of
total number of
individuals in that
individuals in that
community.
community.
That is what we
That
call
is what we call
proportion.
proportion.
You square
You
that
square
value,
that value,
proportion square,
proportion square,
and you
and
submit
you sum it
across all the
across all the
species, the
species,
proportion
the proportion
squares.
squares.
So that is
So
what
that is what
0.71 we
0.71
get.
we get.
Similarly for leg
Similarly
B.
for leg B.
So the
So
once you get the
once you
value,
get the value,
subtract it from
subtract
one,
it from one,
so that
so that
you can
you can
interpret it.
interpret it.
Means the higher
It's
the
the higher
value
the
of
value
1 minus
of one
d,
minus
the
d,
greater the
the greater the
diversity.
diversity.
Simpsons diversity.
Simpsons diversity.
Right? We'll
Right?
go ahead
We'll go ahead
with
with
Shannon's.
Shannon's. Do you
Seems like
seems like
you guys are
you
okay with
guys are okay with
Simpsons as of now.
Simpsons as of now?
Right?
Right?
In Shannon,
In
we'll get an
Shannon, we'll
extra
get an
column.
extra column.
Uh,
Uh,
you get
you get
log pi.
log pi.
So
So
here
here
it's p
it's
p
p
I. So ni
I.
by
So
n.
ni by
So that's
n.
the same
So
thing
that's the
here.
same thing here.
So
So
don't get
don't get
confused. So
confused.
it's a
So it's a
proportion.
proportion.
It is written
It
as
is written
pi.
as pi.
Right?
Right?
So
So
pi is
pi is
0.04 is
0.04
basically
is
1
basically
by
1 by
25.
25.
Right? 1 by
Right? 1
25
by 25
0.04.
0.04.
And then
And then
you
you
uh,
uh,
you take a
you
natural
take a natural
logarithm of
logarithm
that
of that
proportion.
proportion.
It's minus
It's minus
3.219, and then you
3.219, and then
multiply
you
these two
multiply these two
values.
values.
You got
You got
pi log
pi
pi
log pi
or ln
or
pi.
ln pi.
And then
And then
you sum
you sum
all these
all these
values
values
across,
across,
right?
right?
And then you
And then
multiply
you multiply
it with a
it with a
minus,
minus,
because
because
when you take a
when you
natural
take a
log,
natural log,
what you get
what you
is
get is
you generally
you
end up with a
generally end up with a
minus.
minus.
So you
So you
multiply
multiply
the
the
summation with a
summation
minus,
with a
so
minus,
that
so
you
that
get
you
a
get
positive
a
value.
positive value.
So what you
So
get here
what you
is
get here is
0.66.
0.66.
While
While
in Lake
in
B,
Lake B,
similarly,
similarly,
when you do the
when you
same
do
thing,
the same thing,
proportions,
proportions,
natural logarithm
natural
of the
logarithm of the
proportion, and
proportion,
multiply
and
these two
multiply these
proportion
two
and the
proportion
natural
and the
logarithm
natural
of the
logarithm of the
proportion,
proportion,
and then submit
and then
across
submit across
all the
all the
species
species
for that in
for
that
that in that
community,
community,
and you get a
and you get
value.
its
It's
value. It's
1.61 in this
1.61
exam, in this
in
legs
this
and
legs
ducks
and
example.
ducks example.
Similarly,
Similarly,
here also,
here also,
Lake B has
Lake B has
higher
higher
diversity compared
diversity
to
compared
Lake
to
A,
Lake A,
right?
right?
Hope that is
Hope
clear.
that is clear.
So the
So
difference
the
between
difference between
Shannon
Shannon
and
and
Simpson is
Simpson is
basically
basically
this value.
this value.
You don't
You
have
don't have
the
the
log natural
log natural
logarithm of the
logarithm of the
proportions being
proportions being
added into the
added into the
diversity.
diversity.
Okay.
Okay.
Hope that is clear.
Hope that is clear.
Can
Can
somebody let me know
somebody let
whether
me know
that's
whether
fine or
that's
not,
fine or
or
not, or you want me to go over
the
the
calculation of these
calculation of these
indices?
indices again?
Okay, great.
Okay, great.
If you still want
If
to
you
do an
still want to do an
example, we
example,
can do it
we
in
can
the
do
end.
it in the end.
Just a couple of
Just a couple of
slides. We
slides.
can finish
We
that,
can
and we
finish
can
that,
do
and
it
we
with
can
one
do
of
it
those
with one of
threes
those three
example. If you
examples.
still
If
want
you
to do
still
it,
want to do it,
or you can.
or you can.
There are a lot of
There are a lot of
examples
examples
on the
on
internet
the
also. You
internet
can
also
find
you can
if you want
find.
to do
If you
it
want to
at
do
ease
it at
later
ease
on
later
at your
on
own
at
time.
your own time,
Please feel
please
free to
feel
go
free
ahead
to
and do it
go
by
ahead and do
yourself.
it by yourself.
Right?
Right?
So
So
we all know that
we all know that
for us to
for
able
us to
to
able to
do this thing
do this thing comparison properly,
we need to
we need
document
to
all the
document all
species
the
and all the
species and all the
individuals present in a
individuals present in a
community,
community,
right?
right?
If we are not
If we are not
documented all the
documented all
species
the
in the
species in the
community,
community,
okay,
Okay, so let's say we have not documented this species in this community, in both of the communities, then both would have been equal diversity, right? If we just take this, so the proportions would be same, 1 by 4, 1 by 4, 1 by 4, and similarly 5 by 25, so 5 by 20, the proportion is 1/4. So, but we know that, there are a lot of species that are there. So generally, most of the time, you don't have enough time or resources to be able to document each and every single species in a location, right? So what we generally tend to do is to optimize. So which is the better effort, where we can get maximum number of species out of the sampling period. There, when so you try to do some trial and error and try to see where you are getting the maximum number of species. So to do that, with species we do species accumulation curve. So you randomly, so you take species, you go on collecting. Let's say you are out watching birds. Okay, so you watch for 5 minutes. You say, let's say you saw 10 birds. You watch for another 5 minutes. Your the total number of species that you watched till now increased to 20. You watch for another half an hour, and then number rose to 25. The total number of species that you watched till that half an hour. So it just keeps on increasing, but after a certain point, even if you watch for more than an hour or so, you might not go beyond 30 or 35. So it kind of stagnates. So that's what you call accumulation. So the number of species you get to see doesn't increase with the amount of effort that you're putting. So initially, with just 5 minutes, you almost had a double number of species. The first 5 minutes you had 10, the next 5 minutes you had 10 more, so your total was 20. But even after 1 hour, adding after a while, you're not getting many more species. So your number of species has kind of stagnated. So you try to identify where it kind of stagnates and see which is the best sample period for you to capture the major number of species present in that area. So there are multiple ways you build the community. So you build this accumulation curve. You can randomly take this for, you can, once you got the species number, you can ask the computer, or you can randomly take n number of species for this time and build a smoother curve. Or you can just keep on adding in the order you have seen, you will get a jagged curve like this, right? And then you get to know, and then based on your resources and time, you can say, let's say I have enough time, I can put up here till this time, so that I get most of the species. Let's say 35 species, I get at least 33. I'm more than happy because I got made at least 90% of the species in this community. So that's how species accumulation curve helps us estimating, the species in a community. So they're based on samples or based on effort is there, and there is a accumulation curve that you can build based on individuals also. When you plot the number of individuals you see across time, so if you just it also stagnates. If you put it in terms of effort, it also stagnates. So you can use both of them based on the study you are planning. Okay, that is species accumulation curve. And then biodiversity hotspots. So this is the first one of those first papers that talked about biodiversity hotspots. So there are three criteria for a biodiversity hotspot, for a region to be called as a biodiversity hotspot. It has to be higher species richness, higher endemic species, higher amount of threat to the species present in that area. So when these authors mapped all these areas, they said these are the different hotspots of biodiversity and needs to be conserved at priority. So in India, what we got is the Western Ghats and Sri Lanka hotspot. And then Indo-Burma hotspot. This is the first earlier classification. Now we have Himalayan, and then South, then the Eastern region also becomes a third hotspot.
And then similarly, there are a lot of, and then Madagascar itself is a whole hotspot of diversity. And then similarly, the bunch of others which you might have heard of. So they use these criteria, and then now this hotspot has been expanded to other regions also. So yeah, that's all I had today for today. So yeah, if you guys have anything related to this, I would be happy to take them, or else yeah, because that's all I had for today. We can yeah. Any questions I will be happy to take, or any concept that you want me to deal. Anything? Any clarifications or any doubts from today's session, or any concept that you want me to deal in the next session? I'll be happy. Okay, sure. Then yeah, that's all I had for today. So if you have any doubts, I will wait here for a couple of minutes. Feel free to ask, or else that should be the end of the session. Okay, good. Then yeah, we'll stop here then. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for joining for today's session. Hope you got to learn something new, and yeah, got your doubts clarified. That's all. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's it. That's the end for today's session. Yeah, you guys can leave.